We can move on to the next question if you
Okay,
want.
okay, okay. Yeah, I thought you go. Okay, the next and last question then. Uh, Archaeology. The topic will be archaeology in Hebrew seals, which is your expertise, the surfing and apologetics. Ben, you have
Okay. Yeah.
studied engraved Hebrew seals and how they can help us understand better um, the historical and cultural context of the Old Testament. Could you talk a little bit about that and your work in the area?
Sure. So this is the subject of my master's thesis right now, which I'm about to finish up. So in the ancient biblical world, we have almost no manuscripts that survive from too far back, simply because they decay, they get eaten by worms. But one thing that we do have, which is closely associated with manuscripts, which I've been trying to study, is ancient Hebrew seals. And we have thousands of seals from like the biblical lands, from the nations surrounding Israel, from the ancient Near East. So if you remember, for example, in the whole story of Joseph, there's this scene where Pharaoh he becomes so enamored with Joseph, he likes him so much that he decides he has the ceremony and he gives Joseph his seal ring in the biblical text. And when he gives him the seal ring, it symbolizes like, hey, you have the authority of the Pharaoh now, because you have my ring. So that's the object that I study is what they would do in the ancient world, in the ancient Near East, is get semi-precious stones, and you would have this artisan who would carve the name of an important official or person like within this little stone, and they'd be quite small. And then usually it would be accompanied with some sort of art, very often Egyptian art. And then this stone, you could wear it as a necklace, you could wear it as a ring. You would use it to impress. Well, I guess I should go back a little bit. You would get a like a papyrus document. You would fold it up, and then you put a clay on a. You would fold it up, tie it up, and then you put a lump of clay like on the tied cord, and then you would press into the clay this image of your seal. So now the document can't be opened without breaking the seal, and you know who the seal belonged to, the authority behind it. And these little stone seals survive pretty well, simply because they're made of stone. So we have thousands of them from the ancient Near East. So the idea for my thesis was that there's been a doctoral thesis that was published a few years ago, which had this idea of let's create a ranking system where we can tell how likely it is that an inscription identifies a biblical person. So it was an entire book essentially based on this idea of how can we develop a really philosophically sophisticated system for ranking the reliability that an inscription identifies a biblical person. So I took this guy's thesis, I applied it to the thousands of not thousands of Hebrew seals, but the hundreds and hundreds of Hebrew seals that we have, in order to determine, well, how many do we have that can reliably be said to identify a biblical person? And the result that I got was we have 24 artifacts that identify 15 biblical persons living before the fall of the first temple. So these are people that are...
But these are people, not biblical characters, but people who live before?
No, these are biblical characters.
Okay.
People that their names are mentioned in the Bible.
Okay,
Like
okay.
we have their title, we know who they are, which is really cool. There's a tremendous number of people that there's a very good possibility that they're mentioned in the Bible, and we have their seal, but we can't establish... we don't have enough criteria to establish like reliably with certainty or anything like that. I just wanted the ones that were like the most reliably established. So, like I said, we were able to establish 15 biblical persons just from this little stone artifacts that we have.
Okay.
And what you end up with is people like King Jeroboam II, Uzziah, the king of Judah, Hezekiah, the king of Judah, Hilkiah, the high priest, who discovered the book of Deuteronomy, which is pretty cool.
Yes.
And then we have all sorts of, because the Babylonians came through Judah, and burned everything to the ground. They hardened all of these little clay. These documents were burned, and the little clay seals that were attached to them were hardened, basically like stone. So we have a tremendous number of these little clay seal impressions
So Ben,
from Jeremiah's time.
so these seals, did these people actually were wearing them, like you said, like a necklace or a ring,
You could
or
wear them as
or the
necklace,
representatives?
ring, bracelets, all sorts of way they would wear them.
So
But
this, and this is also this is now you got my interest, because these things are actually proofs of these historical characters.
essentially, yes, yeah.
So
Depending on how reliably you can say yes, this is this biblical person, which for some people it's just virtually certain, because you'll have like this seal belongs to Hezekiah, king of Judah. So it's like there's only one Hezekiah, king of Judah in history. We know we got the guy.
all right, so this is like how can I say, like are you know archaeologists like Finkelstein, and they all put like they don't believe that this thing was a made up story, or were made up characters.
So
This kind of throws his thesis to one side. Or
I don't want to like over dramatize it
yeah,
and
yeah,
say
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
look, we've proven like miracles in the Bible, that type of thing. But what is cool is that you'll get a couple people like there's a seal. The most recently discovered one, it was last year and it was announced this year, was one identifying a guy named Nathan Melech. Nathan Melech was a court official in a biblical passage where he just gets mentioned like just barely. Some event happened near the room that he worked in, so his name got mentioned and this took place in this room near where he worked in.
And that's it.
And this biblical passage that he occurs in happens to be like one of the most contested passages in history in terms of like how many times it was edited and like whether or not the events it records happens. So it's so cool that like, hey, now we know this guy existed. We found his seal. So the idea that, so you could say the events recorded about him and like the events recorded in conjunction with him, they probably have some grain of historicity to them, just because like you have memory of who this odd guy was that only gets barely mentioned.
Okay,
So they're like
where is he mentioned in the Bible? I mean, that'll be in the historical books, yeah. And you're talking
it's 2 Kings 23:11.
yes, I was getting to Kings, not Chronicles. Okay, okay. Second Kings, Second Kings. It's only mentioned only once. 23:11. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It says I'm reading in Spanish though, so it's because I wanted to look. Yeah. So that's it. Second Kings 23:11. That's the only. That's okay. Let's go back to it. So this is the only time this individual is mentioned. Yet you found the seal.
Correct.
Wow.
And he's not even mentioned like as an important character. He's just like, they just talk about,
Yes.
hey,
Just
this
to
event happened next to his room.
yeah, just to help locale, just to help find or to give directions.
Right, right. So there's really cool like finds that surface from this. Like we have a seal ring, like we still have the ring attached to this seal of one of Hezekiah's sons named Hanan, which is, you wouldn't expect archaeologically that we would find out the ring size of one of Hezekiah's sons, the guys who discovered the book of Deuteronomy. Or for example, we have a couple of these clay seal impressions that were fired during the Babylonian destruction. So they're rock hard, so they survive. They have little fingerprints on the edges. So we might have, it's very likely that we have the fingerprints of some important men in the Bible, like King Jotham, for example.
Fingerprints, yes.
Let's see. The main research question that I put behind all this is, when you look at a lot of these seals, when I collected all these seals identifying biblical persons together and I looked at them, a huge amount of them had very Egyptian iconography. So, for example, the Hezekiah seal, which a couple years ago was announced its discovery, and it has a winged sun disk. which looks like the Egyptian god Ra, and it has two Egyptian ankhs on the sides. We even have a couple seal, like one seal has a depiction of the god Horus, which is it's really strange because he served a pious king according to the Bible. So the question that I've been dealing with is, why is it that you have all this solar iconography? You have
Yes.
Egyptian iconography on Hebrew seals of people that from history we know they were pious worshippers of Yahweh. And the answer that I've come to, I won't go through all the arguments for it now, but the answer that I've come to is that it seems pretty clear that in ancient Israelite religion, they did this thing that I mentioned earlier of polemical theology, where it was very, very common in the ancient Near East, where you would take the sun disk symbol and you would use it to represent your chief deity. So Hezekiah, for example, the seal of his whole royal administration, it's a winged sun disk. And he accepts this as look, this is a legitimate way to represent Yahweh, symbolically, artistically. And it wasn't like any sort of, it wasn't perceived as any sort of breaking of the second commandment or anything like that.
Even though they were trying to represent, because I can remember, I mean, when I was young, I used to like Iron Maiden. I remember their album Power Slave. I even went to the concert in Long Beach Arena, and so they have all these this iconography from Egypt, and yes, and the sun disk with the wings, and for people who are maybe more your age, which is a cheaper version of it would be like Katy Perry video that was taken down, or the song.
All the Illuminati symbolism.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, there's anyway, and there's a guy who's a music expert that has shown that toot 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 again in this. I'm sorry to go into this thing about Katy Perry, but it got my eye because it's just like biblical. It has some cross pollination. This musicologist, he was showing the thing that they took her to court. I mean the something, and he's saying, okay, I'm gonna put this thing, and you hear it. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is Bach from the 18th century. And then he puts another one. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is from something else. And then he goes, no, I'm sorry. This is from Godzilla. And then oh, this is from Moses coming down from with the Ten Commandments. So that thing has been used time and time again by musicians, and now this Christian rapper wants to copyright it. And when I was listening to this, I said, this is the same argument people put forward regarding Israelite religion copying somebody else. You cannot do that.
Yeah. See, I guess that's the point that I'm getting at is the sun disk, for example, which it's so cool because Isaiah he'll compare Yahweh to the sun in several passages. There's a passage, I think it's in Isaiah 60, roughly somewhere about there, where he says, at the new creation, Yahweh will become the sun. But this idea of representing your chief God as the sun was already a millennia old before kings like Hezekiah took the symbol. It was an indigenous part of his culture.
So representing God as the sun is just again, this is polemical. Again, going back to my God is better than your God.
Right.
Well, but Ben, my thing is, I have a bone to pick with Finkelstein. To tell you the truth, I mean, maybe I don't know. I understood that you don't want to take maybe my position because I'm not an archaeologist. But the thing is that his theory lessons because like the Bible Uncovered is being translated into Spanish, and people, and I made a pun yesterday. They have made that book their Bible to understand the Bible.
Yeah.
And people said the Bible has totally been proven that it's not true. So what you're saying about the seals shows that there are big holes at least there are big holes in his partner on the book arguments. I mean, that's how I take it.
Uh, I wouldn't go that far just because I'm not sure, like in specified format, what types of arguments he's making that you're referring to.
Yeah,
But his
very
school
broad.
of thought, like it's very minimalistic in terms of like how much you can trust the Bible, and it's directly opposed to like some very excellent archaeologists like Elliot Mazar, who's excavating the city of David right now. She discovered the Hezekiah bull, and she's like, her opinion about the Bible is total opposite. She thinks you can follow it, and it's a productive schema to find local sites. So in terms of that, I've read plenty of Finkelstein before, but in terms of what you're talking about, I don't think I'd be probably qualified to
Yes.
challenge him too much.
Neither am I. But the thing is that, um, like I said, this is like throwing a wrench into the machine. I mean,
Right.
at least
Right.
that's how I see it. That's how I see it. Because these people who are quoting Finkelstein as the one and all said, no. There's still some things that we have to consider. So I mean, I see it more so as an apologetic tool. Well, anyway, so those are the questions, my friend. We have finished. Just
Awesome.
one last thing that I like to. So when are you finishing your master thesis?
Should be October. End of October is when I'm scheduled to be done.
Okay, and hoping that you pass. When will graduation take place?
Unclear on that right now, but
Mm.
I might not be in I might not even be in the country for it. So I'd just say in the preceding months after that is when I should be getting my degree. It's it's been very strange in Germany. They're not nearly as quick with like grading things and the administration and everything as I'm used to in America.
Yes, here is as well. Very quickly, they follow. Like I told you before we started recording, they follow the English. So you do your exam, and very quickly you know if you pass or not.
Right, right.
And
Here
look,
I have to wait like 2 months.
and looking at life beyond master degree. I mean, thinking PhD, you have to look for a place to do it, or you're thinking about staying in Germany to do it, or
I'll probably come back to Germany for it. They're just too nice to scholars and students for me not to do that. In terms of
yes.
just pure finances,
Oh,
in terms of quality of education.
I want to go to Deutschland. Well, Australia
Seriously,
actually Australia has paid my studies. That's why I can study. I'm like you. I mean, I don't pay. They don't pay my upkeep, but they pay my studies. So uh,
right?
people are amazed. I'm amazed. I mean, my course, the one I'm doing is. I have it here because before talking to you, I was doing my class, contemporary approaches to biblical studies. That's $2,400 the class, the whole class. So, to pay that would be impossible.
Yeah,
It will be very hard. It will be very hard. So German, but so the government pays, and in Germany, I know that they're very generous as well. So I'm glad to have talked to you, Ben. I hope that when you finish, uh, doors open for you, and thank you for your time. What time is it right
yeah.
now in
Thanks.
Germany? In Germany, what time is it?
It is 2:35.
Here is 2:35 in the afternoon, Wednesday. Yeah.
Yes.
Today, right now, it's 10:35 here in Australia p.m. In Wednesday as well. So thank you very
All
much.
right.
So thank you very
Well,
much. I hope to catch up with you some other time and talk about all the issues. I like to hear more about the seals because I couldn't understand when I read you and but now that you explain it and let me encourage you, your explanation has really helped me. I mean, we're at the same almost at the same. Well, you're finishing. I'm halfway finishing same level of study, and I could understand when Matthias told me about the seals and the seals, and we didn't talk about the seraphim actually, but but that'll be but that'll be on another occasion. All right, thank you very
Sure.
much.
All right. Yeah. Have a good night.
You too. You too.
Thanks.
Have a good day. Bye bye.